Good morning again, and glad that you are with us today. And again, we hope that this Christmas season has been a blessing to you and to your family. And hard to believe that another year is almost gone, and another year is getting ready to start. It's just amazing how fast time goes by. Every year has 8,760 hours in it. And you would think that that's plenty of time to get everything done. But it sure seems like those hours just go by so quickly. I mean, we're always saying, wow, how time sure flies by, or where did the time go, or I can't believe another year has flown by us. So we say these things all the time. And as I was typing this part right here, just starting, I got a text from Tisha asking if we can decorate that night and get all the Christmas stuff up and all that. And right when I saw the text, I was like, I just put it away. I mean, we just took it down. I put it away. Now I got to get it all back out again. And just another year is here already. So just time goes by so quickly. So what we do with our time, what we do with these hours is so important because it goes by so quickly. And as we look back at this past year, a lot has happened in our lives, in our families, in our country, and in our church. A lot of good stuff has happened, but then there's been a lot of challenges, a lot of hard stuff, a lot of difficulties. But in the midst of all that goes on, God calls us to be kingdom-minded. He wants us to be focused on what we're called to do. So life is crazy, just all the stuff that goes on. I'm not going to list everything that goes on in our lives. It's just crazy. But in the midst of all of that, we need to be about the Father's business. So hopefully this text today, as we go through it, will be an encouragement to us to be all about the Father's business as we approach this next year. And this morning, we're going to look at a great story about Jesus who's all about the Father's business at the early age of 12. And when you think back of when you were 12, what were you doing? What were you thinking about? Maybe that was last year, maybe it was 70 years ago. Thinking back when you were 12. When I was 12, I lived in Cincinnati, Ohio. We lived in Cincinnati right before we moved down here. And when I think back of being 12, we were outside. We were outside playing all the time. We're playing kick the can, kick the cone, kick ball. Whatever we could kick, we were kicking. And riding my bike all over the place. I would ride and ride and ride until I either saw the porch light on or I heard my dad's whistle. And that was time to come in then. But ride my bike all over the place. We were in the woods all the time, hiking and building forts and playing a lot of baseball. But as I think back, my mind was not kingdom-minded. Yeah, I was playing and having a lot of fun, but I wasn't kingdom-minded. And so in this text today, we're going to see that Jesus was very different. He was focused on the Father's business. He was kingdom-minded at the early age of 12. So we know a lot about Jesus' birth. We know about the shepherds and the angels and all of that stuff that surrounded his birth. And we just got done talking about all of that in the last few weeks. And we know a little bit about Jesus' ministry, 30 to 33 roughly, but we don't know much else about him. We don't know what he did as a kid. We don't know that much about his childhood, him being a teenager, a young adult, things like that. We don't know what did he enjoy doing on a Saturday. What chores did he have to do? What did he like to play or do with his brothers and sisters? We know he was a carpenter, so what did he make? Was his specialty bunk beds? I guess everything was probably his specialty. But what did he like to make as a carpenter? So we can go on and on with all these questions of what he was doing, but we just don't know. We don't know that much about Jesus as a child, teenager, or young adult. And that's why today's story that we're going to look at is just so interesting, because it's the only story we have of Jesus as a boy, and boy, does it tell us a lot about him. So if you have your Bibles, open up to Luke chapter 2. We're going to be in Luke chapter 2, 41 through 52. So let's start off with 41 through 43. It says, every year his parents traveled to Jerusalem for the Passover festival. When he was 12 years old, they went up according to the custom of the festival. After those days were over, as they were returning, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but his parents did not know it. So our story begins with Jesus and his parents going to Jerusalem, up to Jerusalem, just like they would do every single year. And this shows that Jesus and his parents, they were faithful. They were faithful to follow the law. They were faithful to remember what God had done by delivering his people from Egypt. So they went yearly to observe the feast of the Passover. And the one-day Passover was followed by the 7-day feast of unleavened bread. And the entire 8-day festival was sometimes called the Passover. They just kind of lumped it all together. So for an example, in Luke 22, verse 1, it says, the festival of unleavened bread, which is called Passover, was drawing near. So at times when they referred to the Passover, they meant the Passover and the feast of the unleavened bread. And that's why in verse 43 it says those days, because Jesus and his parents were most likely there for the entire 8 days, not just for the one-day Passover celebration. Another interesting fact here is that only the men were required to make the journey. Deuteronomy 16:16 says, all your males are to appear 3 times a year before the Lord your God in the place he chooses, at the festival of unleavened bread, the festival of weeks, and the festival of booths. No one is to appear before the Lord empty-handed. So by Mary going, this shows her commitment and her love for the Lord. And this was not an easy trip at all. Jerusalem was probably about 80 miles from Nazareth, so this trip would have taken about 3 days to get there, and obviously then 3 days to get back. But this is what Jesus and his parents did every single year. So this was most likely Jesus' 12th or 13th time going, and most likely this, since this happened every year, there's probably somewhat of a routine here. They would go to the Passover festival, celebrate and all that. They would pack up and then they would head home. And most likely they were traveling in a large group. Probably a lot of family and friends all traveled together on this long journey back home. But this time something was different. Something was not right. Jesus did not leave with his parents. He stayed behind in Jerusalem, and his parents had no idea. And so as we read this, many questions might come up in your mind, like, how did they not know where Jesus was? How do you misplace the Son of God? And why did Jesus stay behind this time? For 12 or 13 years he would go, they'd pack up and make this journey back. So why this time would he stay back in Jerusalem and not go back to Nazareth? So maybe Mary and Joseph took their eyes off of Jesus. Isn't that interesting? They took their eyes off of Jesus. They didn't know where he was. And so often that's the way we are in our lives. We take our eyes off of Jesus. Maybe it's the busyness. Maybe the busyness of our life and all that goes on, and we just take our eyes off of him. He's not even the focus. He's not even what we're thinking about or focused on. Maybe it's the challenges, the struggles, the difficulties, all the things that hit us in life. Sometimes those things cause us to turn to him, but sometimes we turn away from him when the hard times come. Maybe it's routine stuff that cause us to take our eyes off of Jesus. Maybe it's mowing the yard, paying the bills, going grocery shopping, taking the trash out, all these normal things, all these routine things that we just do. Maybe we take our eyes off of him during those times. So what are the things in your life that cause you to be distracted? What are the things in your life that cause you to take your eyes off of Jesus? So we're in Luke chapter 2 this morning, and a few chapters later in Luke chapter 10, we know the story of Martha and Mary. But Jesus goes to Mary and Martha's house. Mary was sitting at the Lord's feet, and Scripture says that Martha was distracted with much serving. And she approached Jesus and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore, tell her to help me." And Jesus answered and said to her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen the good part, which will not be taken away from her." So Jesus was right there. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords was right there, and Martha was distracted. And so often that's us. Jesus is right here with us, and He wants a relationship with us, and He wants to work in our lives and do all these things, and we turn away from Him. We're distracted. We don't keep our eyes on Him. So again, what are the things that are pulling you away from keeping your eyes on Jesus? And we can go through the long list, right, of all the distractions, all the temptations, all the things of this world that tug at us and pull at us to cause us to lose track of Jesus. So Mary and Joseph, they lose track of Jesus here. They don't know where He is. So let's find out what happened to Jesus. Verses 44 through 48. Assuming He was in the traveling party, they went a day's journey. Then they began looking for Him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find Him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for Him. After 3 days, they found Him in the temple complex, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all those who heard Him were astounded at His understanding and His answers. When His parents saw Him, they were astonished. And His mother said to Him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." So this is where the story kind of heats up. After a whole day of traveling, they realize that Jesus is missing. He's not with any of the family or friends. They can't find Him. So at this point, like any parent, I'm sure worry and fear and stress, it all kicks in. What's happened to my child? Where is Jesus? I thought He was with us. Where is Jesus? So they can't find Him anywhere. And for us here that are parents, we know that feeling, right? We've all taken our eyes off of our child just for a second. We're watching them for 10 hours straight. You take your eyes off for 2 seconds, all of a sudden, what happened? Where did he go? So we all know that feeling of not knowing where your child is. Years ago, well, we have 4 kids, and that's happened to all 4 of them at some point. But years ago, Kevin was outside playing, and it was getting ready to get dark. And so we called the kids in, Kevin and Colton, to come in, and we can't find Kevin. Don't know where Kevin is. And so at that point, it's getting dark, and we can't find him. And we're like, oh, he's got to be around here somewhere. He's never wandered off. He's never done this before. And so we're looking and looking, and after, 10 minutes, we're like, okay, something happened, something's going on. And we're knocking on doors, and the neighbors are coming out, and he's not in any of the houses, and nobody knows where he's at, and we're searching, and people are now walking through the neighborhood. People are getting in their cars, and they're going through the neighborhood looking. And so this isn't just a few seconds or a couple minutes. This is probably 40 minutes by now, and we can't find Kevin anywhere. So normally when anything happens and Tisha tells me about something happening, I'm like, it's fine. It'll all work out. It's fine. He'll turn up, or I'm sure the arm isn't broken. It's fine. Well, about 40 minutes into it, I'm like, okay, something's going on. Something has happened. And so I start getting worried. And so finally one of our neighbors that we don't even know, he's in his car a couple blocks over, and he finds Kevin in somebody's backyard. And he calls out Kevin, and Kevin starts walking up to him, and Kevin just gets into a stranger's car, which is another problem. And so then he brings Kevin home, and Kevin's just smiling and happy. We're all in tears, and the whole neighborhood's out and all this, and we find Kevin. And so anyway, that worry, that stress, that anxiety of just, where is my son? Where is he? What has happened? Mary and Joseph had that feeling. And again, this wasn't 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. 3 days. 3 days of looking for their son. And later on, when Jesus was found, Mary said that they had been anxiously searching for Him. And this English word here just does not do the Greek word justice. The Greek meaning behind this word is grieving, sorrow, or torment. Other translations say that they sought Jesus sorrowing, or that they were searching for Jesus in great distress. So for days, Mary and Joseph were in deep sorrow as they were searching for Jesus. They traveled one day away from Jerusalem. Then they had to travel a whole day to get back. So again, it was on the third day that they anxiously searched the city for Him. And again, we can go through this passage, and there's all these different questions like, what was Jesus doing this whole time? For these 3 days, what was He doing? Where was He sleeping? Who was He with? Was He eating anything? We just don't know what He was doing during this time. Scripture doesn't tell us. And this time of searching, as Mary and Joseph were anxiously searching for Jesus, I have to find Jesus. As I read through this passage, I think this is just a little picture of how we are supposed to be. Scripture tells us to seek and we'll find. We're to be seeking God with all of our heart, mind, and soul. So what if we were seeking Jesus like this every day? What if we were anxiously searching for Him? I wonder what would happen in our lives. I just wonder what would happen if we were searching for Jesus like this every day. Before I go to bed tonight, I have to find Jesus. I have to spend time with Jesus. I have to be in His presence. I have to be with my Savior today. And as Kevin always says, I need my Jesus. So what if we had that mindset every day? I need my Jesus. I've got to search for Him. I've got to find Him. I have to spend time with Him. And I bet it would radically change our lives if we were searching anxiously for Him every moment of every day. So you can probably imagine the scene here. Mary and Joseph are asking everybody. They get back to Jerusalem and they're asking everybody, have you seen Jesus? This is what He looks like. This is what He was wearing. This is the color eyes He has. This is how tall He is. And they probably go to all the normal places that they would go to when they're in Jerusalem, and they still just can't find Jesus. But then on the third day, they find Jesus, and He's in the temple complex with the teachers of the law. And to Mary and Joseph, this was unbelievable to find Him there. Again, this is not normal for a 12-year-old. Most 12-year-olds are playing and outside and riding their bikes and doing these kinds of things. But Jesus was in the temple complex, most likely with the greatest religious leaders of that time. So Jesus at 12, He listened to them, questioned them, and answered their questions. And apparently, it seems like there was a crowd there, because it says that all those that heard Him were astounded. So it seems like there was a lot of people there that were amazed by what Jesus was saying. And can you imagine that conversation? I wish we had more details of exactly what He was saying and His answers and things like that, but we don't. But we do know that at the age of 12, He was full of wisdom and understanding. And it's interesting, or sad, probably mostly sad, that these teachers that were so amazed at what Jesus was saying would be the ones that would send Him to the cross 21 years later. Then verses 48 through 50. So when they, Mary and Joseph, saw Him, they were amazed. And His mother said to Him, Son, why have you done this to us? Look, your father and I have sought you anxiously. And Jesus said to them, why did you seek me? Did you not know that I must be about my Father's business? But they did not understand the statement which He spoke to them. So after these days of sorrow and grieving and torment, they finally find Jesus in the temple complex. Mary and Joseph were amazed and asked Jesus, Son, why have you done this to us? They were confused, maybe frustrated. They just didn't understand why Jesus stayed behind. And based off of Jesus' response, He knew exactly what He was doing. He said to them, why did you seek me? Did you not know that I must be about my Father's business? In other words, Jesus was not lost. He was right where He was supposed to be. And based off of his response, Jesus is saying that Mary and Joseph should have known where he was. And he also makes it clear that he knows who his real father is. God is his father. So at the young age of 12, Jesus desired to be with his Father, and he knew what his mission was, to please the Father, to do the work of the Father. Jesus was all about the Father's business. So, if they should have known this, why did it take them 3 days to figure this out? Had things been so ordinary for so long, no more angels, no more wise men, no more shepherds, that the mystery surrounding their son's birth had begun to fade away? Or maybe Mary and Joseph were aware of what their son would do and become, but they figured it would be years later. Maybe they started to forget God's promises about Jesus, or maybe Mary and Joseph simply failed to see that their baby was growing up. Again, maybe life was so ordinary or routine for the past 12 years that they weren't expecting God to do anything. So again, we just don't know, but if any of this is true, how we too are like this at times. We see God work in powerful ways, but then we have times where life is just ordinary, life is just routine, and we forget about God. And during those times of ordinary or routine, we somehow think, well, God's not doing anything. But so often when God is doing things, or at times when we don't think He's doing things, He's still God. He's still God. He's still sovereign. He's still in control, and He's still working His will out in the midst of whatever is going on, even if we think things are ordinary or routine. So when times are ordinary or routine, that doesn't mean that God isn't working. We might be right in the middle of His will. So in these times of ordinary or routine, we need to be faithful. We need to be loving Him and serving Him in the midst of these times. And these words from Jesus, "Why did you seek me? Did you not know that I must be about my Father's business?" are the first words that we hear from Jesus, and the only words we have from Him until the age of about 30. And these words, again, tell us so much about Him at 12, and it also sets the stage of how He would live later. Roughly 20 years later, Jesus makes it clear that His understanding about who His Father is and what His mission is has not changed. John 5, verse 19 says, "Then Jesus replied, I assure you, the Son is not able to do anything on His own, but only what He sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, the Son also does these things in the same way." He's all about the Father's business. John 8:28. "So Jesus said to them, when you lift up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am He, and that I do nothing on my own. But just as the Father taught me, I say these things." He's kingdom-minded. And Luke 22:42, as Jesus is praying in the garden before going to the cross, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." So Jesus makes it very clear who His Father is and what His mission is, to do the Father's work no matter the cost. So for us today, how do we apply all of this to our lives? Well, we need to start off by asking ourselves maybe the first question, and that is, am I all about the Father's business? If yes, praise God. Praise God and continue to seek Him and trust Him and live for Him and desire His will in your life. But if not, if no, then what's holding you back? What's holding you back from complete surrender, saying, "Here I am, Lord, may your will be done"? So what is holding you back from complete surrender? So as you're thinking of that, here's a couple questions to get you thinking about that a little bit more. Number one, in order to be all about the Father's business, what do I need to take out of my life, or what do I need to add to my life? Maybe there's a sin, maybe there's an idol, maybe there's something in your life that's tripping you up, that is causing you to stumble. Well, we need to get that out. Maybe you need to add prayer. Maybe you need to add Bible reading. Maybe you need to be devoted to one another. Maybe you need to be in an accountability relationship. I don't know, but what do you need to take out of your life? What do you need to add to your life to be more about the Father's business. Number two, what are the gifts that He's given you to use for His kingdom? And are you using them? Once we put our trust in Jesus Christ, we've been given spiritual gifts. So what is your gift? And are you using it? Are you using it to advance His kingdom? And number three, maybe God is calling you to do something. Maybe He's been calling you to do something for a long time and you just haven't obeyed it. Maybe He's asking you to share the gospel with a neighbor or a coworker. Maybe it's starting a new ministry here at Trinity. Maybe it's joining a small group. Maybe it's letting go of selfishness. Whatever it is, maybe God's calling you to do something and you just haven't done it yet. Whatever it is, Jesus makes it very clear how our mindset should be. Not my will be done, but yours. Everything we do should be to please the Father and to point people to Him. And in this world, this is not easy. The world, the flesh, and the devil are after us every day. Every day is a battle. So when we say, Lord, I am all yours, when we're living in a state of complete surrender and we're saying, hey, I'm yours, I want to advance your kingdom, I want to do whatever you want me to do, it's going to be hard. The world, the flesh, and the devil are going to come after us because we're going against all of them. But as Christians, that's what we're called to do, to give our all for His kingdom. The other day I was reading in an article in ChristianHeadlines.org, and it caught my eye because there was a story in there about a family in Kenya, and I've been to Kenya several times, so it kind of caught my eye. So I read the article, and I wanted to share it with you because this family is being persecuted because of Jesus. They're being persecuted for putting their faith in Jesus and standing for Jesus and not wavering, and we need to be praying for them. And their lives are literally on the line. So here's a story about a family who is standing strong for Jesus, standing for His kingdom, and they're being persecuted. So the story goes like this. After a family in southeast Kenya put their faith in Christ last month, this just happened last month, this is going on right now, so we can, as I'm reading the story, be praying for them, but this just happened in November last month here. Muslims, after they put their faith in Christ, Muslims gave them one day to return to Islam or to be killed, the father said. We were given a day to either recant the Christian faith or face the sword, as well as lose all the privileges the Muslims had given to us. The father, Abu Bakr, had suffered a serious illness for more than 2 months, visiting various hospitals without improving. When a pastor whose name and church are undisclosed visited him the evening of November 3rd, the pastor prayed for Abu Bakr in Jesus' name, and the married father of two received instant healing. The next day, Sunday, November 4th, his entire family decided to put their faith in Christ for salvation from sin. The pastor's church joyfully received the family as new members. The word of their conversion spread like bushfire, he said. It reached the mosque at Sira that I had converted to Christ, and that very day I received threatening messages that the Muslims were planning to kill all of us and take away both the rented house and the 2 acres of land on which we had planted the food crops, maize, and beans. Given a day to return to Islam, on November 6th, the family sought refuge at the church site. During Friday prayers on November 9th, Muslim leaders at the Sira Mosque announced that the family's punishment for leaving Islam. The family of Abu Bakr are now infidels and have become apostates, and they deserve to die, a mosque leader said. The family has since moved from one Christian home to another, and the couple have hidden their children in a place of refuge. Life for us is now very difficult. The Muslims are monitoring our movements. We have decided to take our 2 children, ages 4 and 5, to a Good Samaritan's home. Though they are missing our love at their tender age, their security is more important. He and his wife are concerned about how they will obtain schooling for their children, he said. We are at crossroads, not knowing what to do. No home, no food, life-threatening environment, and children away from us, he said. So again, we need to be praying for this family, that they would stand strong. But this is how we should be living. We should be all about the Father's business, no matter the cost, no matter what it is, standing for Jesus, standing for truth, standing for our beliefs, and not backing down, no matter the cost. And that's the picture of what Jesus has given us as He did the Father's will all the way to the cross. And this road may not be easy, but it's always the best road to be on. Well, Jesus was, again, all about the Father's business, and Mary and Joseph, they were confused a little bit. Again, no more angels and wise men and shepherds, and life was just maybe ordinary or normal for these 12 years. So when Jesus said, "Why did you seek me? Did you not know that I must be about my Father's business?" They just did not fully understand what was going on, and who can blame them? And before going any further, we're talking about being all about the Father's business. And the first step, I guess, in order to be about the Father's business is we need to be part of His kingdom. And so if you've never put your trust in Jesus Christ, if you've never turned to Him and accepted Him as Lord and Savior, then do that today. Don't leave this place without that forgiveness that we all need. We're all sinners. We all deserve death, but we can have salvation through Christ. So if you've never done that, put your trust in Him today before you leave this place. And after you do, then seek His kingdom and seek the Father's will in all that you do. Almost done. Verses 51 and 52. Then He went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. His mother kept all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and with people. So at this point, Jesus leaves the temple complex and goes home with Mary and Joseph. And Luke is careful to point out that Jesus is obedient to them. There's no sin issue here, that Jesus is obedient to His parents. And for the younger people that are here today, if you want to be like Jesus, be obedient to your parents. I mean, here's Jesus, the Son of God, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, putting Himself under His earthly parents' authority. He's listening to them, being obedient to them. You know, if there's ever a time for somebody to say, "Hey, I know everything. You don't need to tell me what to do," it's here. I mean, it's Jesus, the Son of God. He could have said, "Hey, I already know everything." But He didn't. He submitted Himself to His parents' authority, and he was respectful, and He obeyed them. So your parents love you more than you can ever imagine. They want what's best for you. So I encourage you to listen to them. And as Kevin always says, obey your parents and clean your room. So he always puts those together, not sure why, but they're both very important. So obey your parents and clean your room. And just like the time after Jesus' birth, Mary kept all these things in her heart. She was treasuring up all these things. Again, she fully didn't understand everything. Who can blame her? Again, she was the earthly mother to Jesus, the Son of God. And as Jesus grew, it tells us that He increased in wisdom and stature and favor with God and with people. So He grew spiritually, mentally, physically, and socially. He knew how it was to be a kid. He knew how it was to grow up in this world. Again, for the younger people here today, it's easy to think, I'm 14, I'm 15, I kind of know her. I'm 16, I'm 17 years old. I know everything, parents. You don't need to tell me anything. But here's Jesus, and He grew. The Son of God grew. He grew socially, physically, mentally, and even spiritually. So my encouragement to you today is to stay humble and stay teachable. And it's interesting that this time of growing for Jesus was in the setting of living at home under His earthly parents' authority. So as we conclude, Charles Spurgeon said this. As Spurgeon was thinking about Jesus being all about the Father's business, he said, "It was the Father's business that made Him sweat great drops of blood. His Father's business plowed His back with many gory furrows. His Father's business pricked His temple with the crown of thorns. His Father's business made Him mocked and spit upon. His Father's business made Him go about bearing His cross. His Father's business made Him despise the shame when naked He hung upon the tree. His Father's business made Him yield Himself to death, though He needed not to die if so He had pleased. His Father's business made Him tread the gloomy shades of Gehenna and descended into the abodes of death. His Father's business made Him preach to the spirits in prison, and His Father's business took Him up to heaven, where He sits at the right hand of God, doing His Father's business still. His Father's business makes Him plead day and night for Zion. The same business shall make him come as the judge of the quick and the dead, to divide the sheep from the goats. The same business shall make him gather together in one all people who dwell on the face of the earth. Oh, glory to you, Jesus. You have done it. You have done your Father's business well. And may that be said for all of us here at Trinity Fellowship, that we're all about the Father's business, and we do it well.